Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for standing by, and welcome to today's presentation about Ripple's latest innovation, Social Goals 2.0. Your speakers today are Meghan Gendelman, Senior Manager of Customer Success, and Maxime Ovsyannikov, VP of Product. I would now like to turn the conference over to Meghan.
Thank you, Nathan. We are excited to be here. And today I'm going to show you an easy and social way to stay focused and deliver the results that matter. And we'll answer what is Social Goals 2.0, how to use Social Goals 2.0, and I'll walk through a demonstration of the new platform. Also, we'll answer what happened to my old goals, and we'll have a Q&A with Maxime Ovsyannikov, our VP of Product. He's one of the many, many reasons why Ripple works so well. So at Ripple, we really started by asking ourselves, how do people know they're working on the right things, and are they getting the help they need? I mean, we all know that yesterday's generation of static, top-down goal setting doesn't work. And we also know that setting goals once a year doesn't work. I mean, the world changes so fast that it doesn't even make sense to set goals just once a year. It's like saying, I dieted on my birthday, why didn't I lose weight? That's why we created Social Goals 2.0. This is actually something you can use every day to help you focus, to help you set audacious goals, and to share progress and updates in real time. We know that setting social goals decreases errors and makes for better outcomes. In fact, Harvard Business Review did a study where programmers worked collaboratively to build code, and by working together, they reduced errors 75%. So we worked together to build this Social Goals 2.0, and we used the Proven Objectives and Key Results model, or OKR. It's been adopted by some of the highest performing companies today, and we partnered with Spotify to make OKR truly social and ready for you. So here's how it all fits together. You start by creating a social goal, then invite others to help you and collaborate with you along the way. You ask everyone to commit to actions for each key result and share updates in real time. Then you meet one-on-one regularly, and when your objectives and key results are complete, you can showcase them on your Ripple profile to build your reputation. Because social goals are built into the Ripple platform, you will create a timeline of your achievements and recognition. So if you think of it this way, whenever you create a social goal, you'll be able to show it in the feed, you can increase meaningful recognition, and it will fit right into your performance loops. So it's as simple as that. Let me show you how easy it is to do in Ripple. I'm going to take you right into the demo now. So when you log into Ripple, you'll immediately come to the feed. And as you go through the feed, you'll notice things that are happening within your organization. On the right-hand side, it'll say Create Objective. Simply by clicking there, it'll take you to a wizard that will walk you through 4 very easy steps in order to create your objectives and key results, or your Social Goals 2.0. And instead of walking you through the wizard, I'm actually going to show you the end result. So I'm going to click on this key result right here and break it down for you a little bit. The first is this objective up here, to increase social media by 30%. We really want to set it so that you identify what is this audacious goal that we're working on, or what is this audacious objective. This increased social media by 30% is something that is really a stretch objective. Also, you want to notice immediately below it the visibility. Some of your objectives can be public, meaning that they say all in your organization's name, and some will be private, in which case it'll just say contributors. You want to identify right from the very beginning whether or not your social goal is going to be public or is going to be private. And by doing that, what will happen is you can say if it's public, it goes into the feed and everybody knows what's happening. If it's contributors, only these people down here will be able to see what's happening within your social goal. So right away, you have your objective at the top and your visibility. On the right is the description. It's something that explains what the objective is about, and there's the due date for the overall objective. Then you'll notice the different thing is the key results. These key results are the measurable steps that you have to hit in order to be able to achieve this objective. So I have 3 here. Increase Twitter followers, increase Facebook followers, and increase LinkedIn followers. You'll also notice that all 3 key results are measurable. So it says increase Twitter followers to 6,000. it moves the needle, if you will, and really sets it so that there's a step forward that we're taking. Because it's social, under each key result, there's different actions that we've created, and different people within one key result in the overall objective can take different actions. So breaking it down as simple as possible, Nick is responsible for monitoring Twitter to determine responses. Dan's going to host a Twitter chat session, and we're going to increase our Twitter followers, and that's going to be one of the three things that's helping us move our social media presence. It builds on itself. Because it's social, all of these people are working on this together, people can go in and say, you know what, I've completed this, I can just check it off, it goes away, and I can move the percent complete to 50%. Anybody within the goal can move the percentage. They can also say whether it's in progress, behind, postponed, or critical. And we can set due dates, we can make comments, and add something like, can't wait to hear your feedback. And now, because it's social, all of these people can see it, as well as it shows up in the updates, and they'll get an email about it. Really creating this very flowing and open process is a great way to do it. When you think about the goals and you think about your social goals, you want to create something that makes people strive to do better. So I'm going to give you another example. Coming back here, we can say, I want to have the highest quality software in the business. Regardless of what it is, that first thing is stretch, and then we have measurable things below, and we can update the process as we go. Now, where do you find your goals? If you go back to the feed, there's a couple of places. The first is anybody can go to Objective Explorer, which is a tab right next to Newsfeed. And if we click View All, I can view all of the public objectives that are within my Rypple instance. So make Acme Prime the best place to work, roll out Rypple, and I can see the status that's happening. I can also sort this by department, for example, HR, or by product. And I can sort by either myself or my contributors. The other thing is, as a manager, I can go to My Team's Objectives, and only managers have this view. But simply by going to All and hiding myself, I can look to see for my team what they're working on. So Deborah here is working on increased social media. She's working on improving public speaking, having the highest quality software in the business. She's working on all of these things, and I can tell she's doing really well here, or the team is doing well here, but there's some other areas that we want to follow up on. Scooting down, I can see this for each person. There's Kevin and Maria. It lets you as a manager at a glimpse really be able to see what's happening with your team. Now, improve public speaking. This is a great example of an individual social goal. What I mean by that is this is something that Deborah's working on herself, and she and I are partnering together. It's a goal for herself, but she's asked me to help her with it. Her key results are to take presentations classes offered by the company, join Toastmasters, find 3 opportunities to speak, solicit feedback. And what's happening is I can see right away that she's working on this to get better, but because it's just her and I, and it's limited to contributors, only she and I have visibility into this goal. It fits right into the platform. So when you really think about how do you do it, that wizard, which we had up here, create objectives, it takes you through those 4 steps. What's the objective name? What's the description? Who do you want to participate? What are the key results? And what's the image you want to upload? It fits into the process as well because your goals can show on the feed. You can get feedback on them. And a delightful thing that's coming in the future is that when you complete a key result, it'll show up in your profile. So we can click on Nick and look at Nick. There's his completed objectives. There's his completed results. And when he completed this key result, in the future you'll be able to say, I'd like to get feedback on that. Same with objectives. In the future you can say, I'd like to get feedback right there. Right now, we can see that he's completed, as well as when I do his performance summary and I go to give him feedback and I click on his quarterly loop by clicking Submit Feedback, I can even click on the Activity and Feedback tab for this first question, what projects were rocked this quarter. I can click on the Activity and Feedback tab and look to see these are the objectives that he's worked on. And say, you know what, you rocked this increased social media, move it up, paste it into question 1. And if I go back to write summary, it's right there. And I can fill in some additional words. These are some things that you rocked this quarter. Same with things that could have been better. I can go back and say, these were the things that were behind. It really allows me to have an entire performance platform that Social Goals kicks off. So that if I start every quarter by setting my social goals, then what I can do is as the entire organization works together, we can look to see how does it all come together. I'm going to take you back to the presentation and say the next piece of it is how does it fit into Rypple? And what happened to my social goals? Social goals fit everything right into Rypple and they fit perfectly. The only changes are that your goals are now called objectives. Your metrics have become key results, and your actions are tied to those key results. So when you think about the metrics, you can set up to 5 key results for each goal, each social goal or objective, and you can set the progress or percent and the status. And anybody can change that percent and the status every time, and you can look to see who changed it recently in updates. All of the actions are tied to each key result instead of the overall goal. So that's another change. Because I'm looking to see what are those measurable things, my actions have specific ways that they're tied to the key results, so I know who's responsible for what. Now, also, contributors need to commit to the goal. So what that means is each person will be asked to commit or decline when a social goal is created, and if you don't feel you have the time or if you don't feel you have anything to add, you can decline the social goal. If the objective is made public, then you can still view the goal. If it is not made public, then you have to be a contributor in order to view. If you don't commit or decline, you'll be prompted to do so in the future to create a little bit of excitement and enthusiasm around doing it. We also want to give you peace of mind. If you've already been on goals with Rypple before, you don't have to do anything. We've already imported all of your goals automatically for you. You can today go in and update your key results, update any actions, invite others to help you, and update your status on each objective. That peace of mind is there because we've already taken care of it for you. So we've shown you why we created Social Goals 2.0, how to use social goals, and what happened to your old goals. What questions can we answer for you now? Maxime, the first question that came in is, what types of teams is useful for social goals, and how does this change staff behavior?
All right, so that's a really good one. What's interesting is that the word team was used to ask this, and actually this is exactly what it's meant for. It's not meant to accomplish something alone. It's meant to do something as a team because of the social aspect of getting work done. And basically my answer to this is that any team that wants to get things done, Social Goals 2.0 is the exact tool to get work done.
Thank you. Another one that came in is, how can I use Social Goals 2.0 and Rypple as a whole to help bring my teams, specifically my executives, kind of over to Rypple and show them how this social stuff works and connects directly into the real world?
Well, what's interesting is that this is not just a tool to set personal objectives, right? This is also a tool to set organizational objectives as well. So a CEO or a general manager can go in and set something very high level, very strategic for the team, and then you can set a bunch of related goals and objectives to subordinate to that. So this is a perfect way for somebody in charge of the organization to say, these are the things that we want to accomplish, and then for a bunch of other people to sort of subordinate and say, these are the organizations that will then help me get these key results completed. So I would say that it's precisely meant for this kind of collaboration in the organization.
Okay, so on that same note, another question that came is, how do social goals encourage mass collaboration?
Well, there are a few things that you showed in the demo that I'd like to point out one more time. So first is the fact that everything is transparent and everything is shown in the feed. This is sort of the key component of social human capital management approach versus the non-social one, right? So everybody can see what everybody else is actually doing unless it's hidden from them for some kind of confidentiality reasons, right? So that's the number one thing. And when you see the work that somebody's doing where you're not a contributor, for example, one of the things that we found during our beta program is that a lot of people are actually interested and look into what is this work that's happening, and a lot of them will choose to then become a contributor to this. So social goals and the showing of social goals in the feed is the number one reason to increase the mass collaboration on objectives, where individuals that wouldn't otherwise know anything about sort of the work that you're doing would then collaborate with you and add themselves as contributors.
So that sounds great. Thank you. Do you think, another one that came in is, do you think that key results can replace a day-to-day task management tool?
Yes and no. Let me explain sort of what they're meant to do, and I'll let the individual who asked this question, make their own conclusions about this. So key results are milestones that you set to accomplish a goal. So they're definitely not tasks that you would sort of have as a task list for you to do. But then the actions under those key results could actually be the tasks that you can assign to each of the contributors on the team. So if you're an executive and you're setting organizational objectives, you're less likely to set tasks, right? You're more likely to say, this is what I want to accomplish with my organization, and here are some of the milestones that I recommend that we use to walk in that direction. But then when you create personal goals that are associated with this organizational goal, you can use the framework of actions that are associated with these objectives to actually substitute your daily task management system that you use. But when we built that, we didn't build that in mind to actually be such a substitute, but I'm just giving you one example of how it can be used in association from organizational goals to personal goals, and we certainly have customers who are doing that. There are a few benefits to do that. So, for example, again, transparency is a perfect benefit. So as you accomplish these tasks and as you check them off, they will be transparent and shown in the feed, and people can actually help you. People can, give you recognition for the work that you've done, or you can also ask them for help in addition to the stuff that you've done. So these are just some examples for how Social Goals 2.0 can be the next generation platform for getting work done within your companies.
And with that, a question that's similarly related is, what suggestions do you have for integrating Social Goals 2.0 with existing project management?
That's a very interesting topic for us, mainly because one of the things that we're trying to avoid is we don't want this to be the system where you go to sort of retype the work that you're doing, right? So if you're already working in a project management system, or if you already have a system of record for the work that you're doing, Rypple becomes your strategic platform for managing people, where you set these aspirations in the form of objectives and key results. And then you connect it to things like Jira and Pivotal, and basically the updates are fed into Rypple. So one of the integrations that we already have is Pivotal. We don't yet have a Jira integration, for example, but definitely something that we're very interested in. We have an open API that we can give you guys access to, and you can use our open API to build your own integrations to whatever internal systems you're using within the organization to manage work today.
Okay. So that actually leads us nicely to, how mature and sophisticated must a company be in order to utilize this social media concept?
Well, I would say that the only thing that the company needs to understand is the social aspect of managing people, right? So if you are the organization where management occurs, where a manager calls someone into the office, then locks the door and says, this is what needs to happen, and then you walk out and you walk directly to your desk, and then you start kind of doing the work on that, then this approach, or Rypple in general, is probably not the right tool for you. If you're the kind of company that sort of openly says this is what we need to get accomplished, and then you let people figure out how to get work done, then Rypple and Social Goals 2.0 specifically is the right approach. So I would say it has nothing to do with maturity or sophistication for that matter, right? So for example, many startups would be considered as not very mature organizationally and not very sophisticated organizationally, but they are sophisticated in the way that they get work done, which is a big reason why a lot of innovation comes from startups, right? So it has nothing to do with maturity or sophistication, and I would say it has mostly to do with sort of, do you do work in an open social way where you collaborate on objectives and key results?
That actually, when you think about do you do work in a social way, there was a question here about how does this link with the peer reviews, and maybe there's a nice blend there that you could touch on.
Sure. So basically, one of the features that you haven't seen during the demo, mainly because we're in beta with that feature now, it's not yet available, is the ability to gather feedback on these objectives and key results. So Meghan showed you how you can update status, and basically when you complete something, the next feature that we will be adding, the system will kind of nod you towards gathering feedback about how you have done, or as an owner of this objective, how did the contributors that were working with you have done on this objective. So this is a very, very related concept to peer reviews, where you get incremental feedback as you get work done automatically, and not sort of every 6 months or once a year in a way that is too little, too late.
Thank you. On a different track, there was a question here that says, I can see the goals are organized by quarters, i.e. Q1, Q2. Would it be possible at some point to customize this view if we wanted to tie it to 3 times a year, for example?
Sure. So just to clarify, you can totally use the platform as it is now for 3 times a year. You will just skip a quarter, and basically you can set any due date. We don't force you to set a due date to the end of the quarter. We sort of implemented the mass use case that we've seen, is that a lot of people were dealing with 90-day kind of objectives that they were accomplishing for a lot of reasons, because this is how their bonuses were paid, or because this is how they were measured otherwise. But for example, I can have a bunch of my objectives set to be due on February 1st, and this has nothing to do with the with the 90 days, right? And then the next set of my objectives would be due in, say, June 1st, right? So basically, you would have 3 periods there. You would have Q1, and then you would have Q3, and then you would have Q4. So it's up to you how you want to organize it.
And a couple people have asked if there's any help for actually making it specific, measurable, aggressive, time-bound.
Sure. So we did a lot of work on that, and in fact, the wizard that you showed speaks to that. So there are 2 things that we did. First of all, we updated our first-time user experience to enforce what I would call best practices in setting objectives and key results. So when you onboard onto Rypple as a new user, we will tell you that you need to set an objective, because we know that you must be working on at least something. And we will then kind of give you some ideas around how many key results you should set, and we will ask you to set a due date and update it so that we can kind of put in some of the best practices for you, so that as you set this, you already do it right. So I would say that we built in a lot of these things that we learned from the beta customers early in the process in the product. But then this doesn't really limit you from implementing sort of the solution that you want, right? So if your organization says that for each objective you only need 1 milestone, something that we don't recommend, for example, because what you're doing is you're simply repeating the objective. What we found is if your objective has 1 milestone, which is 1 key result, then in most of those cases that key result was just the same in its name, or objective as the objective itself, right? So, for example, we say you should have 2 or more key results associated with the objective. So, these are some of the things that we built in the product in terms of best practices to help you get up and running with objectives and key results in Social Goals 2.0.
So speaking of getting up and running, how do social goals help me know that I'm working on the right things? I love that question.
Well, see, the wonderful thing about social software is that if no one is interested, it's very easy to sort of show that nobody is interested in what you're doing. So, for example, if you created an objective and if you added 10 contributors and nobody said, yes, I will help you, and nobody added actions, and nobody went in and added some of the work that they were doing, it's probably because they're disengaged and probably because they're disinterested in the work that you're doing. So the question to ask them would be well, am I working on the right things, or are they working on the right things as well, right? So this kind of brings up a lot of social management issues that you can start resolving in the organization. Is everyone aligned around the key most objectives and key results? So it helps everybody become laser focused.
Thank you. A question here is about when I've used tools like this before, I've experienced resistance around the simple fact that they've had to log into another tool. So how do you drive people to log in and update regularly?
So first of all, let me just start by saying you don't have to log in. We have single sign-on framework centered around SAML and other standards that you can implement if you use already. We already have Google sign-on, and we're adding other tools as well. So from the login mechanics, we sort of eliminated this. But I think this is more about how do you use Rypple as a destination to which people want to go to and not have to go to. And we have an answer to that. So since we are a social, right, a number of things that we do really well is notifications around all of these things. So your email becomes your central kind of point of notification about work that is happening on objectives and key results, which is great because then a link within that email will lead you directly to the application and to the relevant content that was present in that update. We also have a bunch of mobile tools. We have released an iPhone app a few months ago, and very soon we will be announcing an Android app. All of them have push notifications, so very similar to other tools like Facebook apps, etc., that you're already used to. So our goal and our approach here is not to make it any different than engaging with Facebook.
Great, thank you. So then the next one is, can I try Rypple product in a small department of 4 people, or is it really only good for larger organizations?
That's an excellent one. So the only requirement that we have is that you don't try it alone, because you'll end up talking to yourself, right? So as long as you have a few people collaborating with you, that is really the only requirement that we have. In fact, many, many people, some of the largest customers that we have, started using Rypple at the department level, at the team level, and then went to their head of HR, and then went to their CIO or their head of engineering, et cetera, and said, here is an actual tool that helps us improve performance. So again, don't do it alone because you'll be talking to yourself, and I promise you will get bored really fast.
The next question is about cascading goals and providing roll-ups of results. Can you talk a little bit about how you would recommend people would cascade their goals?
I don't recommend that people cascade their goals, so I'll start with that as an answer. I think there are 3 things that we learned about old ways of setting goals, basically. One is that they are set because they're subordinated to from the CEO, and they're simply pushed down in the organization. And people that are lower level in the company don't really understand any kind of meaning behind the objective that they're being asked to contribute on, right? So that's the number 1 issue. The number 2 issue that we saw is that, because they don't understand any meaning behind this, they forget about it and they don't engage with it. And then the third issue that we saw was that, when it comes time for annual performance reviews, what they do is they're all surprised and they, didn't even remember that these goals that they would ultimately be measured on are there on their performance review. So the social way of setting goals is actually not top-down, but more of a bottom-up, right, where you may have one or two very high-level organizational objectives. They may or may not have been set by the CEO, right? But then everybody else can discover them, see them in the feed, and personally decide how they contribute to those things, and then create related goals. One of the things that we're working on now is a map of contributions or map of objectives that will help you in a much more easier way connect the dots between the two. But I wouldn't call it cascading because, again, cascading is a word that we learned doesn't work, an approach that we learned doesn't work, and is the system that's sort of embedded in old HCM systems. And we certainly don't want to repeat those mistakes with Rypple.
So I have two more questions here for you. The next one is, what are your future changes around objectives and goals? Or what can we be looking for?
Sure. So one of the things about Rypple is we're very agile. Basically, every single piece of functionality that you see that's available in the market from us, we're constantly revisioning and polishing and adding features to. So some of the things that I can talk about is that some of the next things that you will see is we learned with social goals, basically, there's such a huge amount of engagement, which is amazing, that what we saw with beta customers is that all of a sudden there were too many goals. So, again, in direct contradiction to standard HCM systems where you got to really struggle to set these goals, and then you have to go enforce this, and you have to knock on people's heads because they don't do it. In the social system, we saw completely the opposite, which was excellent, which was exactly why we built it. We saw that there were too many goals. So one of the things that we're working on is a very neat ability for you to, at the same time, have a lot of social objectives that you're working on, but also at the same time identify maybe some of the top ones according to you and according to your manager that you're most focused on. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is that we're really interested in this way of reminding you about actionable things. So we're working on a way to sort of develop this goal digest, if you will, that will be sent to you on a regular basis to almost nod you towards some of the things that you have actions on, especially if the due date is approaching. And then there's a huge list of things that I will not be going through, but some of the few ones that I wanted to mention are these.
Thank you. My last question here for you for right now is, can you elaborate on the social gamification elements in Social Goals 2.0?
Sure. Gamification, wow, what a concept. We've been super successful at Rypple with gamification. So there are a few things, right? Notice that, all of the goals have an avatar, and, you can upload your own. This is a way for you to interact with sort of meaning or social meaning associated with the goal. Notice that when you commit to become a contributor, we surface that in the feed. And we not only surface who has said yes, but we also surface people that have said no, and we also surface people who are undecided. So the organization that engages on the fact that, hey, Maxime, you're the last one to say yes, how come you're kind of lagging behind, right? So all of these things implemented amount to this concept of game mechanics and gamification that is yet another incentive to help you get work done as a team, as a company.
I have one more that just came in that's a great one. Can you provide some examples of really productive companies that use OKRs internally?
Boy, Megan, I think that's a question for you because you worked with many of them.
Yes, we know that, thanks, Maxime, but we know that lots of organizations have used OKRs. It's not a new concept. We partnered with Spotify and have had great success working with Spotify and great examples there. LinkedIn is another customer of ours who has been using OKRs in the past and is thrilled to have it in their Rypple system, and they've had great success as well within OKRs. Anything to add, Maxime?
I would say Zendesk is another great example, and just a bunch of other companies. What we're seeing basically is that not only modern and social businesses engage in this concept, but also some of the older ones that have been established for a long time that understand that the old approach hasn't really delivered any value are coming to us and saying that this is the way for them to manage their objectives and key results.
Thank you very much. If you were to say where would be the best place to start, what would be your last recommendation?
If you're not using Rypple already, you should go to our website and click the big button that says Get a Free Trial. And basically, our first-time user experience and onboarding wizard will be the best place for you to start. It will ask you to add some people to contribute on or with. It will ask you to thank them and engage with some recognition there. And it will also walk you through this process of creating objectives and key results. The other thing that I would add is that, just like with competency models, right? A lot of people have a lot of questions about competency models and, should I have 1, should I have 10, or should I have 1,000? Well, you shouldn't have 1 because it's not very meaningful, but you also shouldn't have 1,000. So I would say start with a few objectives and then see how your organization engages on them. Don't start by sort of loading or creating 100, right? That would be kind of an overwhelming event. But I would say start with a few, maybe 5 or so for your organization, and then see what happens with it. Just see what happens with it. If you are afraid, don't be. We heard a lot of objections like, oh, here's a social system to manage work, right? What will happen? Everybody will see or everybody will know. I can tell you one thing, nothing bad will happen. Nothing bad happened. Only good things happen. So I would encourage you to go and get a free trial and get started. Create a few objectives. Invite some people to collaborate. Remember, you cannot do this alone. It's a social system. You cannot recognize any value from it by talking to yourself. And then let us know if you have any questions.
Thanks, Maxime. Really what we've said is Social Goals 2.0 helps you stay focused. It's the right stuff and helps you to achieve awesome results that matter. And if you have any questions, as Maxime said, you can always reach out to success@rypple.com. And you can learn more at support.rypple.com, and we're here for you. So start setting your social goals today. Thank you, everyone.
Ladies and gentlemen, that does conclude today's presentation. We would like to thank you once again for your time today, and you may now disconnect.